Waka waka waka, what's up, and welcome back to the channel for yet another FC Finch video. We got a special video today. You can tell it's special because obviously I'm showing my face, which I really only do when we do these special presentations of sorts. Now, if you've been following this channel since its conception, I would say, you would know that every 6 months or so I do a collection overview where I go over what I have. Hey, here's all my junk, and check it out. Look how cool I am, and all that good stuff. We're kind of going to get away from that in this video. The reason being is that, oh, well, as of the last one, views have kind of started to dwindle, and I can ultimately see why. I really don't have too many crazy new additions to show off. I mean, most of my displays haven't really changed all that much. A few poses have changed. I've added a few figures here and there, but for the most part, it's pretty much the same thing. And I really kind of am losing sight of the point and just constantly showing you the same thing. But I'll put a link in the description below to my last collection overview from 6 months ago if you want to check that out. That being said, I am going to be talking about my collection resume or my journey as a collector. Basically, what got me started into collecting, what got my interest into the toy hobby in general, what I have collected, what I'm collecting now, how it's going, how it's been, all that good stuff. Just kind of my collection resume of sorts. That's what we're going to be talking about today. And I figured it'd be a good opportunity to kind of get to know your YouTube presenter and all that good stuff. So we are going to get right into it. But in the meantime, leave me a comment down below, and how about let me know your collection journey? What got you started into the hobby? What kind of figures have you collected before? Do you still collect them? What are you looking to collect in the future? All that good stuff. Let me know in the comments, and we are going to get right into FC Finch's collection resume. Let's do it. So, as a preface, I've always been into toys. I was fortunate enough to have parents who got me quite a lot of toys as a child, so I always kind of had them in my life. It was always kind of a thing for me, and they've always kind of fascinated me. It was the thing for my imagination. I was born in 1984, so I wasn't really coherently playing with anything until 87, 88. So a lot of the toys that I had were from brands of around that time period. I did have a few Transformers. I had a Jinrai, or a Power Master Optimus, here in the United States. But a lot of the stuff that I really had was from brands like the Ninja Turtles, the Real Ghostbusters, G.I. Joe, stuff like that. So I had the Technodrome playset. I had the Ghostbuster Proton Pack. I had the Firehouse playset for the Real Ghostbusters. I also had the Defiant playset for G.I. Joe. No, I no longer have the Defiant playset. That got thrown out by my parents many, many moons ago. And trust me, yes, if I knew then what I know now, I would never have let them throw it out. But for all I know, the garbage man probably picked it up, took it home, and it's still living a proper life today. But we can only hope. Regardless, now, none of these were collectibles at this point. I was a child. These were toys. I played with toys like a child, and there was no semblance of preservation. This is all kind of just laying the groundwork for my collecting habits and what I'd eventually start really getting into and getting a feel for in the hobby. So this brings me to the first brand that I started consciously collecting, Star Wars, namely the Power of the Force collection released in the early to mid 1990s. I had some help in this regard. My aunt was a massive sci-fi fan. She had a lot of Star Wars in her own collection, amongst other things, but it was mostly Star Wars. She had a whole section of her wall dedicated to it, which to young me was quite impressive and kind of it was something to try and achieve on my own. Star Wars itself was a bit of a coming of age for me as a collector. When the toys came out, I was young in the early 90s. I started, just mostly playing with them. As we go through the mid 90s, I started just displaying them loose on a shelf. And it got to the point where by the late 90s, early 2000s, I was leaving them in the box, which in my opinion is the best way to display Power of the Force figures with limited articulation. I collected these through the Power of the Force years into the episode 1 years, which I think was still Power of the Force, but feel free to correct me in the comments, and into the Power of the Jedi years, which ended up being, the early 2000s, and that was kind of my high school years. At this time, I collected a lot of Gundam Mobile Suit in Action. I collected a lot of Neon Genesis Evangelion, a few other random sci-fi anime action figures. This was kind of a time where I had collection diarrhea. I didn't really have a specific direction for my collection. I just kind of bought what I felt looked cool. Coming to 2003, I actually started to go on a hiatus, just a total abandonment of the hobby. I boxed up all my toys, stored them all away. I started getting into cars, getting into girls. This would pretty much last for about 15 years or so. This takes us all the way to 2017, and you can thank the Facebook algorithm because apparently, when you start posting about how much you love a certain brand like Star Trek, social media shows you ads for merchandise related to said brand that it thinks you might be interested in. In this case, it was the Eagle Moss Star Trek Starships collection, which I think was came around in 2012. So by this point, it was already well advertised over the interwebs, and this was essentially the restart of my collecting hobby. I ended up caving in November of 2017, bought my first Eagle Moss models on their Thanksgiving Day sale or their Black Friday sale, excuse me. I didn't really have any idea of what my direction with this collection was. I figured I'd just start buying the models that I was most interested in. I got the XL Enterprise E. I think I got the Prometheus, a few other smaller models. But as time would go on, I'd start buying them on a more regular basis. Again, it would start with the ships that I was most interested in, and I figured I had plenty of time to go back for the stuff that I was lukewarm or on the fence about. And we all know how that worked out as the line expanded to Battlestar Galactica, Stargate, and even Star Trek Discovery. I'd slowly start getting into those too. I'd start picking all those up, and I'm still collecting them to this day. Soon to be Fan Home, which I believe the newer ship should be out a little later this year. So we're looking forward to that, and we're going to keep that collection going. So we're in about 2020 now, and thank the Facebook algorithm again because I've always been kind of a fan of Transformers, and I've started kind of seeing ads in about 2018 for some of the third party stuff. I just kind of brushed it off. In fact, I remember seeing the ad for Fans Toys Quietus, didn't quite know what it was. I'm like, no, I don't want to get into collecting again. Well, in August of 2020, I decided that, you know what, I'm just going to cave. I'm going to buy one figure, one really good Optimus Prime figure, and I plan to get MP44 from Takara as my really good Optimus Prime figure. Talked about it with the Admiral, and had everything set, and I ended up picking that figure up, and I was like, okay, that's it. And well, those were famous last words because I started saying, well, if this is this good, how good is everything else from the Masterpiece world? I fell down the Masterpiece rabbit hole, fell down the third party rabbit hole, and it's really just kind of exploded since then. I've actually had to impose a few restrictions on myself due to the limited budget and space, which we actually discussed in a previous video. But that said, Masterpiece Transformers and Eagle Moss ships are the biggest lines that I'm collecting the most of right now. And actually collecting with purpose on dedicated display furniture. Again, this is the first time that I actually purchased specific display cases and looked into specific ways to kind of display my collection and just kind of show off my love for the franchise and get a little creative with how I'm laying out my figures. I do have a small amount of NECA and Haya Robocop stuff. I got some 3-0 Power Rangers stuff with a few other brands mixed in as well. Nothing that I plan on dedicating anything more than one shelf of a DTOLF to, fingers crossed anyway. But just, little stuff that I was also interested in and want to have a little bit of remembrance and nostalgia for on my shelf. I'm always thinking about getting into other brands. Right now, I'm thinking about getting back into Gunpla building, which I used to do back in the day. But again, space and funds are limiting factors, so we'll see how all of that goes. So that'll about wrap up this abridged history of my journey as a collector without being too overly wordy. But knowing me, I probably did get too overly wordy. But boo-hoo, it is my video. I will cry and babble if I want to, though I do hope you did enjoy it. And of course, let me know in the comments about your collecting journey. What brand did you start with? What got you into toy collecting? Are you still collecting the same brands? Did you change it up a little bit? If you stopped collecting, why did you stop and what brand did you stop on? Let's have a nerdy discussion in the comments. I am dying to read this kind of stuff. That being said, that is going to end this video, so you guys know what to do at this point. If you found this video fun and informative, but mostly fun, especially for this topic, hit that like button down below. That does help me out. I do greatly appreciate it. Also, if you're not currently subscribed to this channel, I encourage you to subscribe, especially if you have an interest in Transformers Masterpiece toys, or just Transformers toys in general, or Eagle Moss, soon to be Fan Home, or every once in a while we might do something a little bit different. But if you have an interest in any of that, consider subscribing and sticking around for one of those reviews. Thank you so much to the 580 or so of you that already are. I do greatly appreciate it. Thank you for being a part of my collecting journey and making me a part of yours. And that's going to about cover everything. I have been FC Finch. Thank you so much for watching. Good night.